The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of Stone d'Appetit. Usually we have a little bit more zest and vigor, but it just doesn't feel, I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me at all. We have a solemner episode, or more solemn episode, as we got news of our friend Chef Amos Watts passing away this weekend. So we're gonna kind of just reminisce, bring smiles to our faces by telling stories about Chef and how he not only impacted this podcast's trajectory, but also how he impacted our lives. Before we dive into any of that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors. We have to do it. He would want us to do it. We'll talk about all three of his episodes on today's podcast. And he was a fan of the fried chicken. He was a Kentucky Colonel himself. So he would be upset if we didn't go about doing this podcast the right way. So shout out to our friends over at Bird Call. If you're looking for a dank, customizable chicken sandwich in the Colorado region, look no further than our friends at Bird Call. Whether you're ordering online or skipping inside to the kiosk, they'll get you taken care of lightning fast and with delicious food. Whether you're hunting tater tots, tenders, or maybe even their new Mediterranean bowl and tiki masala Sammy, there's nothing that you won't enjoy over at Bird Call. Check it out. They're hatched right here in Denver. Oh, okay. So for those that don't know, Chef Amos Watts, who was the founder and head chef, executive chef at the Fifth String, which was just in the literal process of moving from their location in the Highlands and then downtown over to their new location in the Park Hill neighborhood. We don't know the full details. We sent a message to his wife, Jess, and our heart just absolutely breaks about the terrible news that came about. Y'all have probably had the luxury of being able to try his food, as he was one of the better chefs in the community. We had him on the podcast a few times. We had raved about his restaurant from brunch to late nights. We did a collab with him. He was our first partner when I quit the day job and doing that collab for Open Deli. Shout out to Jake. I'm sure you remember the days. It was the fried green tomato sandwich, Chris.
That thing slaps.
With the bacon jam.
Bacon jam.
Oh. And he was just a wonderful chef. But before that, and all of that, he was a wonderful husband to Jess and a great father to Loren and to Sloane. And it absolutely breaks my heart. And it just sucks.
Yeah, I think there was a pretty big outpouring in the community for him because his presence was hard not to be known. I mean, let alone the size of the man. Like, you could spot him anywhere. But his
Shout
smile...
out to fish shows.
Yeah.
Seen him a lot.
I mean, you just bump into him. But, man, he was always happy. He was always, funny and, joking. But he was serious when it came to, cooking and stuff, and he could whip up some damn good meals. And, you just always had a fun time.
Yeah, he always he brought a smile to your face. His personality was infectious. I think a lot of folks in the community and in the industry, it's a little bit incestual in that it's not that big of a community. So a lot of the chefs have maybe worked under one or came up with another chef. And I think, having Chef Justin Brunson on this podcast, he would say something to the same effect. They kind of worked together in cahoots. He was at Corita at a time, under Brian Dayton. And I was just talking with Eric last week up at Marigold about his time there and working over there with Amos. And we were talking about the Fifth String just recently opening up. So he had these great relationships that he had fostered and these connections he had made through his cooking. But it was like you said, it's kind of like, I don't even know what the word would be, but it's the exact opposite. You'd see someone so large, in presence, but he had such a warming and calming effect. He was like the biggest teddy bear. And even when like getting drunk and wrestling on the floor, which we may have done a time or two, it was always in jest. And so he'd always bring a smile to everybody else's faces. And so I feel like we just have a gaping size hole in our heart for this episode today, as we kind of reminisce about the 3 times we tried to do this goddamn
It's sad
podcast.
that we never aired one of those, because like, while let's say like 80% of it was probably bad on our part, there was like 20% of it where we learned some really cool shit, but we just we couldn't air that for the sake of our listeners. We were having too much fun.
Yeah, I think the first time we had him on was just before COVID, and we got to really goof off with him. We had him in our house. We cooked a family supper, and we ended up just catching a serious fade, and then the world went under. And so he was like, just scrap the episode. So we scrapped it. And then the next time we really tied on a righteous buzz. And that's the one we're thinking about, where it's like, oh yeah, we can't put this out into the world. Like the sloppiness on our part, it just...
we weren't enunciating. But I remember though, we did have him on during COVID, like Zoom, when we were talking to restaurants and seeing like what they were going through. He joined for one of those.
Did he? Okay, so maybe we got one.
But that wasn't like a fun, normal episode, that was our...
Yeah, his personality.
Oh my God, how's your restaurant doing? Is it going down the shitter? Like, then everybody's staying upbeat.
And I can't remember if that one, maybe we dropped it and then we may have had to pull it, because I think it was when he was at Carita and then was leaving to go open the 5th String, which I think was ahead of its time in the Highlands neighborhood. I mean, obviously that real estate is fucking primo, but it's like he was doing, beef tallow candles, and like, he turned the wine rack into a fucking meat curing room. Like, the man had a way in a kitchen, but he also had a way with the community. And I think a lot of people are hurting, friends and family, but those that maybe even just met him in passing are probably feeling the effects today, because it was just such an infectious personality that you wanted to be around him the more you could. And I remember, he cooked for me when my leg was hurt, and invited me to his backyard garden, which, now I just wish, I hope it grows to be big and strong. So it really hurts my heart. And I don't know if we have much else on today's episode. I just wanted to make today's a little bit more about Amos.
Agreed.
I guess we could say, hey, Eve, how are you? Yeah, okay. We'll be back on Thursday. We're going to be doing a mom's episode for Mother's Day coming up. We'll talk a little bit about where you can get your reservations for that, as well as we'll have a fun little draft going. But yeah, fuck, today just sucks. We don't really have the gusto to kind of keep on doing the podcast today. So we're just going to take a little time to think about Chef Amos. Again, we want to let Jess, Loren, and Sloane know that our thoughts and our hearts are with them. For all those that worked with Amos in the industry and in the community, our hearts go out to you as well. I'm sure they're hurting just as bad as ours are today. And for, the Colonel.
Be sure to
the Colonel.
Share fun memories.
Yeah, post your pictures from 5th String, tag them, let them know how much you enjoyed, your experience there, or maybe it was from Carita, or maybe it was from one of the mini pop-ups, maybe like the ones he did at Open Deli, which he brought a fucking like toy car to show how big the sandwich was for size. So it looked like this car was driving up the side of a fried green tomato sandwich. I mean, the man's personality was larger than life, and so we're just gonna miss him immensely. Until next episode, stay high, stay hungry, hug your friends.
Share the love.
Cheers.
Cheers.
To the Colonel. We drink in your honor tonight.